Hey guys, in this section we're going to be putting what we've learned from PHP and MySQL into play, and we're going to build a task management application. And this is the final product, and we just have a welcome page and a login form, and we have a registration form which a user can fill in, and it'll insert all these fields into our database, and then they'll be able to log in. So I'll log in. Once they log in, they can create lists. If you see this add list link up here, and you can create so this is a list of tasks. That's what these are. So you can see a list has been created. If we go back to our dashboard, you can see another list was created, and we can click on that, and then we can add tasks. So we'll add a task, and you can set a due date for the task. Create. So now our another list has a new task, and you can click on that. We can edit it, so we can change it if we need to. We can reschedule the due date, and we can mark it if completed, so that'll just get rid of it really. And we can add tasks from this link, and we can actually select our lists. Now this uses user authentication, so you obviously can only edit your own tasks and lists. So that's really it, and we can log out, and it brings us back to just the welcome text. Now there's quite a bit of code to this, so I'm going to mostly be doing copy and paste, but I will explain things as I go along. This is using the Twitter Bootstrap framework or layout, so we're not going to really get into any design stuff. I usually prefer to use this layout when dealing with programming because it's just clean and easy to read. So first thing we're going to do is go to our htdocs folder, and we need to create a new folder called myTasks. And I'm going to manually build up our files just so you can get a better feel for it. So we need our index.php, and we also want a config.php, and the config is just going to hold our database credentials. Then we need a CSS folder, we need a classes folder. We're going to have one class, and that's the database class, and it's going to use PDO like we learned in the last section. I'm going to have a pages folder. The JavaScript we'll just leave for now. I'm going to open the index. Alright, and I'm going to paste in just the HTML at first. And this is mostly just Twitter Bootstrap. Get rid of that. Okay, so I'll save that, and we'll actually visit the page, localhost / mytasks, and this is what we have. And we shouldn't have this. Alright, so this is what we have. We have a title, a one menu link in our little footer. If we go to the HTML, you can see we have our nav menu only has one link, which is the home link. We have a little title. This is going to be a spot for a welcome, so it'll say welcome and then the user's name. We have the sidebar, which is where the login form will go, and we have the main area. Alright, so let's get the CSS. I'm just going to copy the Bootstrap file, paste that in there, and now if we visit our page, now it looks a lot better. So now what I want to do is kind of explain the page structure. Now our pages are going to go in here. For instance, let me create one. We're going to have register.php. Now we're not going to access this like we would a static file. We're not going to say /pages/register.php. We're not going to do that. If we did that, then we'd have to include our HTML in every new page that we create. Instead, we're going to use a query. We're going to use a get variable. So we're going to say index.php $page equals register. And that way we can grab this and we can include the register page right in our index.php file. And I can show you what I mean. Right now, if we go here, it's not going to do anything. It still brings us to the index.php page. But if we go in and let's go to the main area and let's echo out the get variable of page. Okay, we'll save that. Now if we reload, we get register. So we can easily include the register PHP code in the index.php file. Now this could be anything. And whatever we type here, whatever is going to go in this page variable is going to show here. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is include all the pages that we need to include. And they're all we're going to use an if statement and check the get page variable. So we're saying if the page equals welcome or if the page equals nothing, then we want to include the welcome.php page. So that's going to be the default page. If the page equals list, it's going to include the list.php page. Task will include the task.php, and so on. Alright, so let's get some pages. Let's create, actually I'm just going to copy this. Let's create our welcome page, list, task, new list, new task, edit list, edit task, and delete list. Pretty sure that's all of them. The welcome PHP is going to be our default, so I will open that up. And let's go to our final, and let's open that welcome page up. Alright, now there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't want to put in yet. All I want for now is just the welcome paragraph. We'll put a little heading. Alright, so if we go back, we're going to get rid of this query here. Alright, so we get our paragraph. Now we're getting these notices, and these aren't really important. I'm actually going to get rid of these. So if we go to our config file, we just want to say error reporting 0. Okay, and we want to include that into our index file up top. Include config.php. Okay, so now that should get rid of that. Alright. So now what I want to do is grab our database class. And this is just an open source PDO class that we're using. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want to copy, paste. We can open that for a second. It just allows us to interact a little bit more user-friendly with the database. It holds our parameters, it creates the database handler and the statement variable. It allows us to do the binding, run prepared statements, execute. We can get our information in a result set to loop through, or we can get a single record. We can count the rows. So just different methods to help us deal with our database. So we have to include that as well. We'll just copy this here. And that's going to be, we're going to include classes slash database.php. Whoop. Alright. And our config should be included before our database, because our config is going to hold the credentials. So let's put those in now. And I'm going to open this config file and just grab these settings. Alright, so localhost, we have the username, password. Got to change the name of the database to myTasks. Okay, so that should be all set. We shouldn't have to touch the config file again. Now we need to create our database. So I'm going to go to phpMyAdmin. And I'm going to import the database file just to save some time. And you should have this in your program files, mytasks.sql. All you need to do is click the Import tab, choose the file, click Go, and it's imported. So now you can see over here we have myTasks. We have 3 tables. First we have the users, and if we look at the structure, we have first name, last name, email, username, password, and registered date. Alright, and ID is the primary key, and it's auto increment. And then we have lists, which have a list name, body, a user that creates the list, and a create date. And then we have the tasks, which have a task name, body, a list ID. So this is the foreign key to the list table. It'll be an ID from the list table. Due date, and then we have a create date and an is complete. And this is just a tiny int. This is a 1 character. It'll be either a 1 or a 0. So it'll be either complete or not complete. And the default is 0. Obviously, because we don't want someone to set up a task and have it already be completed. So we set the default to 0. So that's what we're working with. So if we go back now, what I'd like to do next is set up the registration. So if we go to, let's actually go to our index file and add a link to the registration page. And the link, we can get rid of this, and we want it to be index.php question mark page equals register. Change that to register. Okay, save that. If we reload, now we have this register link, which takes us to an empty page. So we need to open that register page. And I'm going to open the final one as well and copy that in. Alright, so the top, we're seeing if the form has been submitted. If it has, then we're going to do all this stuff. But let's first look at the form. If we save this, we can actually see it in the front end. Alright, so we have first name, last name, and over here you see the value. We're saying if the post variable first name has been submitted, then echo that variable. So what these do is if you fill out the form and you get an error, this keeps it from the fields just going blank again. So it'll keep the values that you already have entered, even if the form didn't go through. That's what this does here. Alright, so that's pretty much it. The action goes to server PHP self. That just means it's a self-submitting form, so it's going to go right to this page. And that's why up here we're checking to see if it was submitted. So if it was submitted, we're putting all the post variables into regular variables. Here we're creating an errors array, so it's just a blank array. And now we're doing some validation. First validation is if password 1 is not equal to password 2. So that's these two fields. We want to make sure these are the same. If they're not, then we're going to put this message into the errors array. Next thing we're going to do is check for required fields: first name, email, username, password. If any of these are not filled in, the message will get inputted into the errors array. So down here we're going to check and see if the username has been used. So we do that by opening a new database object, and we're just going to check and see if there's already a username with the username that we submitted here. If there is, then it's going to say, sorry, this username is taken. It's going to add to the errors array, and that's what this row count does. So if they find a username that matches, then they're going to put this. We're going to put this into the errors array. Same thing here. We're going to check the email. So it's going to see if the email, if there's an email that matches the one from the form, then we're going to put this into the errors array, and it's going to say, sorry, that email is taken. Alright, so now down here we're going to see, is there anything in the errors array? If there isn't, if it's empty, then we can go ahead and do what we're going to do. And what we're going to do is first encrypt the password. You can easily encrypt text using the MD5 function. So we're just saying a variable enc password is equal to the encrypted version of password. Alright, and next thing we're going to do is finally do the insert. I'm going to say insert into users. We're going to put all the fields that we've entered, and these are placeholders. We saw that in the PDO section. And then we're going to bind the values down here. And the password, we're going to bind the encrypted password. So we're not going to store any plain text passwords in our database. Now we execute it, and now it's going to check and see if the row is inserted. If it was, then it's going to say you're now registered. If it wasn't, then it's going to say something went wrong. Alright? And then here, we're just going to scroll through the errors array, and if there are errors, then we're going to output those as list items. So I'll save this, and we'll go to our form, and first I'll try to submit it without any fields filled out. And you can see we get this list of messages, and this is coming from the errors array that we set, and this is happening because certain fields are required and they're not being filled in. So let's try to fill some in. First name. Okay, so let's do something here. Let's make these passwords not match. Try to register. Now you can see we get your passwords do not match. So the validation is working flawlessly. And you'll notice what I'm putting for a password, I left this confirm password so you could see it. It's just 5 ones. Now I'm going to register, and you can see now it says you are registered, please log in. So if we go to our database, I should be in the users table. And there I am. First name, last name, email, username. Now look at the password. You remember I used just 5 ones for a password, and now we have this long string here. That's because we encoded it, or we encrypted it with MD5. So that's how you can have secure passwords. So even if someone broke into this database and they were somehow able to get to the password field, they just have this MD5 hash as opposed to just your plain text password. And it also has the registered date, so that's just the date and time that this row was inserted. So now we know we're registered. Now we can log in, but we don't have a login form yet, and we can do that now. If we go to I'm actually going to go grab it from the final, and I'm going to go to my index. I'm just going to grab this form, and it goes right in the sidebar. Now there's a few things here that might look a little new. We have sessions, and we haven't really gone over sessions yet, but they're pretty easy to understand. You start a session with session start. Alright, so that's just a function that's going to start a session. And when you start a session, you can assign variables to the session global array, or super global as it's called. And one of the values or variables that I'm going to set is logged in, and that's just going to mean if the session is running or if we're actually logged in. And if we are, well, this actually says if we're not logged in. You can see the exclamation mark. So if we're not logged in, then we're going to echo through this message array, which is called login message, and display any messages like your user name and password don't match, stuff like that. So that's what this loop is doing. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of this session start. We'll see this in a little while anyway. So this form is going to be submitted to itself, to the index PHP page. We have username, password, login button, and then this else is part of this if logged in. So if we're not logged in, we're going to get this. We're going to get a log out button instead of a log in. Alright, so that's what this does. And we can save that and reload. And now we have our login form, but we have no code. I mean, I can put something in here and submit it, and it's getting submitted to our page that we're on, but there's nothing happening. We have to do that up here. And I'm going to grab that. I shouldn't have closed that file that I had open. So that code is right here. I'll grab the log out too. Okay, so index. Alright, so just like in the registration, we're checking the submit button. Alright, so if the submit button was clicked, then we're going to do this. So what we're doing is putting the username and password into variables, much like we did here. Let me show you here on the registration page. And we're getting the password that the user types in, and we're assigning it, we're encrypting it in MD5. Alright, so the ENC password is now the encrypted password, and that's what's stored in the database. So here we're going to run a query using our database class, and it's select all from users where username is equal to username placeholder and password is equal to password placeholder, and then we're binding those placeholders right here with these values. So what we want to get is a result set, so we run database result set, and we're getting a count variable. We're going to see how many rows are going to be returned back to us, and only rows where the username and password are matching are going to be returned back. So we're saying here if count is greater than 0, so if we got some rows back, or a row back rather, we're going to start a session. And I showed you this a couple minutes ago. Session start is going to start the session. And then now here we're assigning these session variables. We're assigning session username and session password to the username and password, and then we're setting session logged in to 1 because we're now logged in. Okay, so if there was no results, there was no matching username and password, then we're going to get this message, sorry, that login does not work. Alright, and this login message is what you saw right here. So we're looping through the login messages and displaying them. Alright, so that's the entire login system, is this little bit of code right here. And the reason it's so small and compact and easy to understand is the PDO database class that we're using. And speaking of that, we haven't created the object yet. If you go to the final version of the index.php file, we have to actually declare the object. So I'm going to grab that. Actually, I'm going to grab this whole part here. Alright, so we're also going to put session start at the top of index.php, because if we don't, then we're only going to have the session running when we click on the login submit button. So we need to have the session running. Alright, and here, like I said, we're declaring the database object, and that's what's being used down here in the queries and the binding. Alright, so let's save that and let's try that out. What was, oh yeah, the 5 ones. Alright, so the way we can tell we're logged in is that the login form is no longer here. Alright, so one thing I want to do is I want to have a little welcome up here. It's going to say our name, our username, and we can do that. We can do that because we have our session username. So I'm going to copy this, and then down where it says hello, we can actually, let me see what we had on the final. Yeah, so we're going to grab this. So what we're saying here is if we're logged in, if the session is logged in, we're going to say hello and then the session username. So save that. If I reload, you can see now it says hello Brad T. So if I log out, then that disappears. Alright, so we have our entire registration and login authentication system complete. So it's a lot easier than you would think. And I think that's a good place to stop. I'm going to make this into either 2 or 3 videos because there's quite a bit of code that we need to go through. So I'm going to stop here and I'll continue in the next video.